All right, so I guess we should start with
yeah, I guess
where
just
are you?
just
Where are you
like
from?
kind of your background and how
Yeah.
you came to the area and
Okay. Well, I was born in New York City
okay.
and grew up in the suburbs of New York and then the suburbs of Philadelphia. Uh, and came to the area because I went to Dartmouth College.
Oh,
Oh.
And so I came up here as a freshman at Dartmouth in 1961. Took the train up here. There was no interstate back then, so
Right.
I took the train up and to White River, and then a taxi to Hanover, and then I was a freshman at Dartmouth. And as far as at that point, all I knew about this area was the Hanover
right.
campus.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
to me, the rest of this area was like the remote wilderness. I had no idea where it was or anything. Thetford, never heard of Thetford
Right.
at all. But my freshman advisor, everybody got assigned a freshman advisor at college, and my freshman advisor was this guy named Noel Perrin. Do you know?
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
familiar with him?
I've read some of his stuff.
Yeah, he was a long-term Thetford resident and an English teacher at Dartmouth who wrote a lot of books about rural life.
Yeah.
And he lived right in Thetford Center, right the second house past the covered bridge, going up Tucker Hill Road.
Yep.
And he took all his freshman students out for a picnic out to Thetford, where he was living. At that time, he was living. He didn't live in that big house by the covered bridge. He lived at the far end of Tucker Hill Road, in those fields that are off to the right. I don't know if you know that area, but just before you get to 132.
Yeah.
You've got these sloping fields.
Okay,
There
yeah.
used
I
to
think
be
I
a
know what you're talking
homestead there at the bottom of the hill. It's totally gone now. There's not even a house there. But he lived there in this leaky old farmhouse that was freezing cold, and he lived there with his first wife. But anyway, he brought us there, and he took us for a walk up into the woods behind that house to this little field that was way out there in the woods, and it was a place that really struck me as a beautiful place. And it came to pass that many years later, I asked him if he would sell me that land, and he said yes, he would. And that's where I live now.
Oh, perfect.
Same place. So
Cool.
that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But my career at Dartmouth was a little rocky. I really wasn't into being at college, and I was kind of almost flunking out. And I came to Ned Perrin and said, and as my advisor, and told him that I wanted to. I was thinking about dropping out, and I thought he would say, "Oh, you got to buckle down, give it some more chance. You need to study some more." Instead, he said, "That's a great idea. You ought to drop out. You just go. You need some time away from college, and then see if you want to come back."
Oh, wow.
So I love that advice from him, and I took it, and I did drop out, and I was drafted pretty soon after dropping out, and spent 2 years in the military, in the Army, stationed in the U.S. And then after 2 years in the Army, I was really ready to come back to college. I had a new outlook on college. It seemed like a really good idea. I'd seen how things looked for people who didn't have any opportunities, and I realized that college was a smart thing to do. So I came back, and it was a different story for me. I studied, and things went pretty well. I met Barb. We got married, and we joined the Peace Corps after college. I was married the last 6 months of school. We joined the Peace Corps and went to an island in Micronesia in the Pacific for 2 years. We lived on this tiny little island with only 300 people, and we lived in a little house that they made for us out of plywood sides and a thatch roof top with an outhouse, no running water, just primitive, but it was tropical. It was a tropical island, so it was pretty easy living. But I think those 2 years gave us both a taste for what it would be like to live a simpler life, off the grid and without all the conveniences. So when we came back, I decided to go to medical school, and I came back to Dartmouth to do a year of pre-med. we oh yeah, we had all this money from the Peace Corps that we'd saved. That's when we bought the land from Ned Perrin. He charged us the outrageous price of $175 an acre for that land.
Oh,
and we
man.
bought 10 acres from him. So $1,700 is all we paid. It was pretty amazing. And then we built a yurt. You ever heard of those
Yep.
things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A round building with sides that slant
Yep.
out and a roof
Yep.
that looks like this. It looks sort of like a giant cupcake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we lived in that for a couple summers, and we rented houses in the area during the wintertime. One year we lived where Jim Fowle owns a house right up here on the right, about 4 houses down on the right-hand side.
Oh.
We lived there one winter. And we lived further down Academy Road on the left one winter, and then one year we lived in Post Mills.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to know the area pretty well in Thetford. And Barb started teaching at Thetford Academy right then. That was way back in 1970, I think it was. Is this more detail than you want?
No,
This
go.
is good. This is good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So I went to Dartmouth Med School, and it was a 2-year school back then. And we went to everybody who went there moved on to somewhere else for their final 2 years. I went to University of Washington in Seattle,
Oh, wow.
and we left the area for 2 years. And during that time, the yurt got buried in snow one winter, and the roof collapsed
Oh.
like a inverted umbrella
Right.
and blew out, and that was the end of the yurt. So that was gone. But after graduating from med school out there, we came back to Worcester, Mass. I was doing an internship there, and then after that internship, I took a year off, and we came back up here and built a little house right near where the yurt was, on the same land. And that's the house I live in still.
Okay.
So that place is off the grid and has no septic or anything like that. We dug an outhouse, got a permit, an outhouse permit.
Wow.
And at first we were off the grid. We used kerosene lamps and candles and Aladdin lamps and gas
Wow.
lamps, and
Thank you.
went to bed early because it was dark. So the house was pitch black at night, except for a few candles. And then gradually we got into using car light bulbs and car batteries to get a little more electric light. And then eventually solar panels started to come
Right.
along. And
Right.
now I have solar panels and a wind generator
Wow.
in my
Wow.
place. So that's how I'm
That's awesome.
how I'm powering my house now. And anyway, we raised Zach, who went through the Thetford school system and Thetford Academy, who's now 39. He grew up there, and we met other people who were into living off the grid. We kind of there's a sort of a bond of people who live off the grid. We're always talking about who's got the most interesting electrical system or hand pumps or animals, gardens. We were into raising pigs and chickens and sheep and all that stuff. So we met a lot of the other off-the-gridders, and got to know. And we're always looking to see, talking to local people who could help us figure stuff out. And one of the big supporters of hippies and off-the-grid type people was this guy named Floyd Dexter. Have you ever heard of him? He lived. He was a great guy. He was a local guy, and he lived down at the bottom of the hill in Thetford Center.